Today I'm breaking down episode 7 of Daredevil Born Again. This episode brings the Muse storyline to a critical point and explores the complex dynamics between Matt and Heather and Matt and Fisk. But does it stick the landing? Let's find out right now. Welcome back to the Nerd So Show. I'm Nathan. As always, chapter links are below if you want to skip ahead. Episode 7 of Daredevil Born Again dropped this Tuesday, April 1st. It tackles some heavy themes, relationship tensions, Fisk political machinations, and the Daredevil/Muse confrontation. If you're new here, I reviewed the entire season because we got screeners, and if you haven't caught that review, there's a link above. Colin had been doing these breakdowns weekly, however, he only got through episode 6 when we got the screeners, so I'll handle the last 3 episodes. So let's unpack this episode. The spoiler-free logline that I came up with for this episode is, this week, as Matt's relationship with Heather faces new strains, Daredevil's confrontation with the elusive Muse takes a dangerous turn involving those close to him, while Fisk escalates his manipulative campaign against the masked vigilante. So I actually happened to be recording this after the episode premiered this week, but going forward, I'm going to actually record it before the episode's premiere. One, because I want to get them done in the can, and the other reason is because I'm traveling next week. So we're going to have some clips in this episode once we do the post-production from this episode, but in the future, in the last 2 episodes, it'll probably just be me talking to screen because I don't have access to the screeners that they gave us a month ago, so I don't have any images from the episodes, even though I have notes from those episodes. All right, so the series continues under showrunner Dario Scardapane, with the directing team led by Justin Basin and Aaron Moorhead, known for their work on Moonlight and Loki. Their distinctive style shapes the episode's atmosphere. Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio continue to anchor the series as Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk. This episode, however, gives significant screen time to Margarita Lavia as Heather Glenn, Matt's girlfriend, and Hunter Dohan as the increasingly central Muse. We also see more from Michael Gandolfini as Daniel Blake and Gianna Walton as Bibi York. Okay, so I'm going to dig into this a little bit deeper with the expanded analysis, which is going to require me to spoil this episode a bit. But before I do that, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. All right, last warning, spoilers ahead. So episode 7, this one landed a bit differently for me, and honestly it contributed to why I felt the season overall, while good, didn't quite hit the heights of the original series' best moments. First, we start with Matt and Heather. The opening shower scene and conversation were certainly interesting. Heather attempts to analyze Matt's trauma post-Foggy's death, and his dismissive reaction felt very raw. Her observations about his trauma seemed actually spot on, but Matt calling his current life fake without Carrot and Foggy, despite Heather being right there and expressing her love, was cold. It sets up some tension between the two of them, even if she's a professional. Imagine that not sitting well with me. Fisk is, of course, another story in this episode. His obsession with Daredevil has reignited. While he once seemed content with Matt the lawyer just being out there and alive, the re-emergence of the vigilante sets off his need to dominate in an almost petulant way. His moral posturing around due process rings particularly hollow given his own criminal background and his selective application of the law. It's where he sounds the most Trumpy. I know there's been a lot of analysis about this being a reflection on Trump, but of course this show was shot before Trump was elected again. But yeah, there's definite parallels here. He condemns Daredevil's vigilantism, specifically citing instances like Daredevil roughing up his former associates without due process, which might be a credible point if it were coming from anyone else. And yet he simultaneously is deploying his own authoritarian task force, which operates with blatant disregard for the very principles Fisk claims to uphold. It's like Trump's ICE agents rounding up suspects with zero judicial oversight, sometimes targeting individuals merely for exercising their rights like free speech, reminiscent of heavy-handed totalitarian dictatorships. The hypocrisy is stark. Fisk demands the shield of the law for himself and his interests, interests while readily wielding state power as a weapon against others, ignoring due process whenever it hinders his agenda. The Muse confrontation in the middle of this episode actually is pretty good. The actual fight between Daredevil and Muse was decent, and the show did adequately explain how Muse could physically challenge Matt. Heather's intervention shooting Muse adds a layer of consequences and trauma for her character that will surely reverberate later on. Going back to Fisk after Muse is killed, his manipulation of the narrative surrounding the death of Muse is also very Trump-like to me. Claiming his task force stopped the killer, not Daredevil, is a calculated political move, spinning lies to consolidate power and demonize his opponent. A stark example of controlling the story for personal gain. The Daniel and BB stuff at the end of the episode was actually pretty interesting. Daniel Blake pushing BB to run the Frisk Fenry narrative shows Frisk's corrupting influence on Daniel, but at this point in the show, BB's motives seem unclear to me. She's shown the willingness to compromise sources like Daniel before, so her angle in going with Daniel and covering up the truth is ambiguous to me at this point. At the end of this episode, given how this episode started with Heather not necessarily being on the same page as Matt, the statement she made to Muse in her office about people with masks being cowards, her professional interest in people who wear masks, and the real trauma she went through when Muse tried to kill her and she ultimately shot him during the Daredevil fight. With all that together, I suspect that her reaction to Matt being Daredevil is going to be intensely negative, possibly mirroring Foggy's initial reaction in the original series. I also found interesting in this episode was the storyline with Vanessa. Given how coldly Vanessa set up Luca for that hit at the end of this episode, it's clear whatever strain she and Fisk are having because of his taking up the mayorship and disrupting their criminal empire, she remains loyal to Fisk when it matters. As I said at the top when I started analyzing this, while I liked a lot of this episode, it highlights a recurring issue and frustration for me this season: pacing and character development. The Muse storyline, while intriguing, feels rushed to the conclusion here. We get exposition, but it could have benefited from development over several episodes. It mirrors the brief but impactful Hector Ayala arc that ended in episode 3 earlier this season. That's my favorite episode of the season, but we should have gotten more with Hector. It often feels, as I mentioned in my review for the entire season, it often feels like only Matt and Fisk receive substantial character development, with others primarily serving to advance their conflict. This is why I gave the overall season an 8 on our scale instead of something higher. While there were compelling character moments and decent action, the rushed conclusion of the Muse plot and the continued feeling that supporting characters are underdeveloped hold this episode back for me. So, in my final analysis, episode 7 of Daredevil Born Again gets a 6 on our scale, or a date night rating. It has significant moments, particularly the Matt-Heather relationship and Fisk's escalating villainy, not just his machinations as mayor, but his hit on Luca. And the Muse confrontation provides a great climax. However, the pacing issues with the Muse arc prevent it from reaching its full potential. However, it does set up some intriguing possibilities for the remaining episodes, especially regarding Heather's reaction to Matt's identity and Fisk tightening his grip on the city. What did you think of episode 7? Did the Muse storyline work for you? How do you think Heather will react after she finds out about Matt? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please like and share. It really helps the channel grow. For more in-depth analysis of film and TV, subscribe and hit the bell notification. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye.